Hey, everybody. I don't know if there's anybody here live, but we had a little bit of a change to the schedule. Roman and Lenny had to fly out early. And this is the last day of the AHTD fall meeting in 2024. And so I thought, who better to get on here with me so that I'm not all alone talking to myself than Frank Hurt, one of the earliest members of AHTD. I don't know, Frank, can you tell me a little bit about the history of AHTD? And
Yeah, and I'm not really one of the original members, but here's how it started. It got going in the late and mid 80s. There was meetings held, and back in those days, it was a group of about 25 people that knew each other. They met in the conference room or in the warehouse or someplace at the members, and they alternated around. The original founding father is a guy named Bob Dietz, who hopefully he'll be listening in. Hi, Bob. How are you?
We'll make sure to send him a link.
Hope things are good down in Naples. Wish you were here. But I joined in like 1990. I think 92 was my first meeting.
Oh, my sister's the year that my sister was born. Okay.
Well, yeah. And here was the cool thing about it. I had moved from working for a manufacturer. I joined up with a distributor. We were members of the National Association of Electrical Distributors. They had a high-tech initiative. I went to that initiative and I was really super excited. And then 2 weeks after the meeting, they said, we're discontinuing it. And one of my friends, who was one of the original founders, called me and said, hey, Frank, I didn't know you were in the distributor world now. You got to come to AHTD. And the first one I attended was in Kansas City, Missouri, in a hotel downtown. It was cool. It was neat. And the thing I liked about it, which is going to really sound incredibly weird, is that when I went to NAD, it was a bunch of old people. and I was yet to turn, I think I was 37 or something back then. And I just, there's got to be something for us young people to get together.
Yeah.
And it was a group of young people, and here I find myself. I think I might be the oldest living member at this meeting. But it's cool to be in a group of young people who are going to change the world, just like we thought we were going to change the world, and in some ways maybe we did. I don't know, but it was great. And I'm going to throw in one other thing. The first half dozen meetings that I went to, I don't believe there was a single female in attendance, except for maybe one company that was a husband and wife team that worked together. But it was really the old boys club, and in the worst of ways and in the best of ways, because we weren't really old then; we were young boys. And so,
young at heart. You can also be that.
Young at heart. Yes.
I will have to say, so this is what my 5th AHTD meeting, maybe. And for those of you that aren't familiar, hopefully you are by now. I've been posting and tagging AHTD. It took me a little while not to mix up the letters and say ATH whatever, but it's AHTD, the Association for High Technology Distribution.
Incredible, yes.
Took me a little while to also not say high tech distributors or some other flavor variation of that. But it's really a meeting of, what would you say mostly regional distributors, or at least it's regional and national distributors?
Yes. The main thing that you have to be a member is you have to be someone who practices knowledge-based selling.
Yeah.
It isn't really a group for people that send brown boxes to places all over the world. Everybody here puts some knowledge with everything that they sell.
Which is why in this group, the distributors are actually called automation solutions providers rather than distributors, right?
Yes.
ASPs, we call them. And so that is really, this world is not how I started in automation. I started with, if you people know me at all, I started with Keyence, which is has a direct sales force only.
Mhm.
And so I actually started my career with a lot of negative talk about distribution and distributors. And just like you find as you grow older, the world is not as simple, and you hear multiple different types of opinions, and there's two sides to every coin. And when I worked at Festo, I actually ended up supporting a new distributor called Powermatic Associates,
All right.
who is
Yes.
an
Good friends
AHTD
of mine,
member.
too,
Exactly. And I was their Festo rep. And I realized that the world of distribution is a whole thing that wasn't as terrible as it sounded from Mike Kean's training.
Yes.
And that distributors really have a unique role if they're especially this automation solutions provider focus of learning how to put together applications with technologies from multiple different manufacturers, right?
I think that that's one of the key things. The fact is that plug and play is something that everybody talks about, but it rarely works in our business. There's some things that do, but as soon as you count on it working, it doesn't. And most of the members have technical people on staff who can test it out, make sure it works, and then if it doesn't, they become the person when one manufacturer says no, it's their fault, and one says that the distributor is right there in the middle to solve the problem.
And so that's something that I learned from Roman as well when we were starting QuoteBeam, and his history and why he wanted to do something to help the distribution channel was that as an electrical engineer, when he was building things, whether it was as a machine builder or when he was running the customer solutions group at Festo, was that regional distributors provided so much more value than low-cost suppliers that were trying to get his business by just saying, I have the same gadget at a lower price. Or somebody can say, hey, I have the best specs on XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't know how to apply the specs, or if you're not there when, oops, you picked the wrong ones, those are all things that really play into the value of your business dealings, right?
Especially when we're talking about mission critical applications.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a facility and the one machine provides things downstream, and oops, there's it shut down. What do we do? And you can call the manufacturers. If you can get a hold of them in 45 minutes or less,
right, I would say most of them don't have the staff to support that kind of speed.
And if you need somebody to go there, there are people that have fabulous technical support as manufacturers. But where is it located? Chicago, Philadelphia, Houston, and sorry, boys and girls, but there's a whole rest of the United States there.
Exactly.
And I was based in Iowa, so you could be sure that there was no technical support. Within 5
I'll
hours.
say hi to if Kathy Rinney, if you or Lauren ever end up watching this. I know you guys are in rural Illinois, and there's not a whole lot there to draw on in terms of the stuff that you would get in other major metros. And so I know they recently put on their own little automation expo for their local community to be able to see, and other manufacturers in the area, how much there is in automation now, and them as a family business running a farm and an automation company. So I now have this huge appreciation for the regional distributors and the smaller companies. And I found, Powermatic, the first one that I worked with, they're a wholly employee-owned company.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also something that was new to me to understand when, these employees are not just working here, but they're in fact part owners. They all share in the success. And it's been a pleasure to be involved in this community. And AHTD is my first time coming into an industry association where
people are friendly.
Well,
where people will talk to you.
No, but it's you see basically what some people may consider competitors, which are distributors that kind of sell some of the same things, and they in some cases service some of the same customers, or they could, right? And they actually come together to share best practices, to take leadership classes together, to share resources, to teach each other how to have internship programs. That's something new. I literally just talked to somebody yesterday that was like, yeah, we're thinking about getting interns. Actually, this comes from Miriam Suleiman, who is an intern for PCE, Process and Controls Engineering. She was here in Seattle visiting Allie this week. And Some guys that, kind of know about us and what we're doing, they're like, yeah, how did that work out with Miriam being an intern? We're thinking about having some interns, but we're not sure how much value we could add and how to manage them. And I said, you're in the right place.
Yes.
There's a program here to actually help you put together a program to have a valuable internship program. And that's new.
That was probably one of the most well thought out plans, because if you think about automation industry, I don't know how you got into the automation business. How Festo reached out, or how you reached
Keans
out.
University found me
okay.
through campus recruiting.
Yeah,
They're very
sorry,
active on college campuses. Yeah.
That's I went to work for Alan Bradley a million years ago, and all of my friends said, "You mean the people that make the Monopoly game?" And I go, "No, that's Milton Bradley." Well,
Yeah.
who the hell is Alan Bradley? And we have an industry that's a hidden deal.
Oh, absolutely. I had no idea it existed.
Yeah, and probably the other part is your family and friends probably think you're working for the mafia because of the, hey, she's working for something. They, what they say, automation. Wonder what that is.
Yeah, because the insides of most factories are hidden. I mean, people see how it's made.
Mm-hmm.
But those are usually legacy processes in factories that they're not really worried about anybody stealing their competitive advantage, or, they're proud of how they do things. They have a rich history. And unfortunately, I would say the spectrum of other manufacturing goes from it's so high tech we can't tell anyone our secret to, well, we don't really want to show you how the sausage is made. Right?
Yeah, and even if you work there,
yeah,
everything that we sell is inside of a box.
It is.
It's inside of a gray or white steel box, or maybe it's plastic or stainless steel, but it's inside of there. And the people that work and they have no idea, unless they happen to be in maintenance or happen to be in engineering. It's just magic.
Yeah, right. And, it must be the PLC. Maybe the program changed.
Well, and we know what happens when the magic smoke gets out of those things.
Well, Frank, do you want to tell us a little bit about, aside from AHTD, your history? Like you said, you started with Alan Bradley, and I know a little bit about it, having read about half of one of your new books recently.
Did you really? Thank you.
And then I misplaced it along with my health and my mind and many other things. But I'm working on finding those things again, including the book. So I will finish it one day. But if we want to, make this a semi-typical Automation Ladies episode, I would love to hear a little bit about how you got here.
Okay. First thing, and if you read the book, you know that this is the story.
Yeah.
I grew up, my parents were in what they called the tires, batteries, and accessories business in a small town in Illinois. Your friends in rural Illinois might even be neighbors to my hometown. And, I worked at the gas station. I worked in my dad's warehouse. And I had this vision of doing something else. At the time, and incidentally, I graduated from college in 1977. So everybody there can quick get their calculators out and figure out how old I am and how long I've been around. But I decided I was going to school to be a computer engineer.
Yeah.
Why computer engineering? Mostly because I thought it sounded cool.
Yeah.
And plus I read a book when I was a little kid called Danny Dumb and the Homework Machine, which is a story about a kid his neighbor's a college professor. The college professor lets him watch the cat, but the college professor also has a computer inside. Danny Dumb programs it to do his homework for him. And at age 8, that was like computers, that someday I will have computer slaves that will do everything I want.
Yeah, every automation engineer's dream, right?
It is, yes. I wonder if that book was a bestseller still. But so I decided that I wanted to do that. But then as I got through college, I started going, this is pretty boring. I knew a gentleman whose name was Ed Smith, and who's no longer with us, but he worked in a sales engineering capacity. And he drove a really, really cool car. he had suits and ties on. He ate at restaurants. He did all the what
Yeah.
I considered to be the high life. It's like vacation, motels,
Ooh.
and swimming pools, movie stars. And so after college, I started to interview him for jobs, and I did the normal stuff. I think Honeywell was there interviewing. Sperry Rand was there interviewing.
I've never heard of
IBM,
that company.
they're out of business now.
Okay.
IBM was there. Digital Equipment Company was there. And I went and said, I don't want to work in your factory. I don't want to work in some lab. I want to be a salesperson. And all my college professors just threw a terrible fit. You're going to throw your education away to do this. Well, and then this is going to be another great thing for all the folks out there.
Yeah.
Is that I was one of 32 computer engineers that graduated in the whole United States. I was
Wow.
in demand.
Yes.
Because they saw computer engineering and thought it sounded cool too.
Yeah.
And a computer engineer coming out of college in 1977 commanded a massive salary of $15,500 per year.
I wonder how much that would be inflation adjusted.
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
It would be $42,750.
Oh, so roughly around what I was making out of my first college job.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, gosh, things have changed, because I just looked and said computer engineers and electrical engineers right now graduating from Iowa State University or the University of Illinois, which are the two that I work with in TRAP, are doing 72,000 the first day out of school.
Yeah.
Kind of. So if anybody happens to be, in high school and they're watching this by accident because there's some old guy on it, become an engineer and you can live a decent life. And
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It is an in-demand skill that, as long as you keep a learning mindset, I would say, you will never run out of things to learn and to continue to engineer into
Yes.
the future, right?
And not only that, but you will have homework until you're age 70.
Yes.
So this is which is
We're
which
doing
is
a live
good thing.
podcast. Julia, come say hi. No? Okay. Bye.
But it's great to have adoring fans come by. Nikki is so known and well loved. Everybody wants to. If we could turn the camera around, you'd see like there's probably a studio audience of 30 or 40 people, but we're big shots, so we won't do that.
Yeah, we'll keep them in the dark.
So Alan Bradley gave me this offer for $15,500. I went to work for them. When I went to work, they promised me that I could live in Atlanta, Georgia, because Atlanta, Georgia was super cool, and it was the time of the New South. Or else I could live in Houston, Texas, which is kind of my childhood home.
Okay,
or
my current home.
Your current home.
Yeah.
It's a great spot most of the time.
Yeah.
And or San Antonio.
When the power's on.
When the power's on and when you're not outside in the summertime.
Yeah.
But you could go to Galveston Beach, which I thought, this was me. I was thinking I'd go to Galveston Beach every day and live the good life, but it didn't work out. So I went to work for them one day. About 4 months into what was supposed to be a 12-month to 18-month training program, I got a call from the president of Allen Bradley. Now, this is not the vice president.
Yeah.
This was the head guy. And it was like at Allen Bradley in those days, because it was before emails, before messaging, before anything, messages came on these pneumatic tubes.
Oh, so cool.
So they put it in the department and it went by air down to a mail center. They went, oh, Frank heard he's on the 7th floor in the training area, back up. And the person who was responsible for dishing out those messages was kind of like a babysitter for all these 40-some trainees.
Yeah.
It said, Frank, you are to report immediately to Tiny Rader's office. And all of a sudden, my whole life flashed before my eyes. How am I going to explain to my parents and friends that I got fired after less than 6 months on the job? And I go into Tiny's office, and Tiny says, well, sit down, Frank. I was looking at your resume, and you're a computer engineer. See, I told you, everybody thinks computer engineers are cool.
Yeah.
So he said, I thought you were a computer engineer. And we have this division in Cleveland that makes computerized equipment. And
Ooh.
we're really having trouble staffing that. And I want you to move to Cleveland.
Did you want to move to Cleveland?
Well, does anybody want to move to Cleveland? Back in those days, the story was, you know what the difference between the Titanic and Cleveland was? Cleveland has just a little bit better orchestra, but you know, and the lake had, or the river had just burned down, was caught on fire and burned 2 years later. It was just it was not a vacation spot.
Yeah.
And I said, well, Tiny, when I hired on, your people told me that I could go to Atlanta, or I could go to Houston, or I could go to San Antonio. Why am I going? They said, well, apparently no one's explained the transfer policy to you. And I'm going, oh no, this is where he's gonna really. And he said, here's the transfer policy. If you go to Cleveland, we'll give you an extra month's salary and an extra week's vacation.
Oh.
Well, you know, 6 months out of school.
Cleveland was already looking a bit better.
Cleveland was on my, oh gosh, yes, let's go to Cleveland. And I got there and I found out for all of the Allen Bradley programmable controllers sold, they were all made there, number one. They were all supported out of there. And there were 3 applications engineers.
Wow.
And so they just wanted me to go there to be a semi-trainable gopher for those 3 guys that knew something, because they were in such demand. They were traveling someplace all the time. And I can still remember going and doing a PLC demonstration for engineers at Chrysler in Detroit. And we flew from Cleveland to Detroit on this airline called Right Air that flew over the lake so low that you could look down and see fish jumping and the waves cap. I got there, I had all this. I mean, the PLC was this big by this big. You can't see it, but it was probably by like 3 by 3.
Yeah.
And I got there and there was a whole room full of people. Plugged it in and it did not work.
Of course it didn't work.
It didn't work. It was too much vibration and everything. So I learned tap dancing and PLC things. So anyway, a long short story is that I was in Cleveland for about 9 months. They asked me if I wanted to go to Macon, Georgia, or Savannah, Georgia, to help with the startup. Again, supporting the sales team. I thought that was really cool. I got the extra month's salary and the extra week's vacation, which was fine. And I really loved Savannah.
And when you're young and kind of unencumbered, it's so nice to be able to take those opportunities to move around.
Yeah, and when every earthly possession that you own would fit in the back of a 1974 Buick, or that wasn't a Buick, it was a Mercury. But I just said, heck
that
yes,
helps.
I'll go. You get me out of my lease. They said, no problem. So I went down there, got that. I stayed there for a short time. And then they said, John Deere just bought their first PLC. We'd like to have a salesperson. We'll give you the John Deere stuff in Iowa. And so I came over to that. And in 1970, late 78, and I thought, okay, this is going to be 18 months and then I'll go south. And life happened, and so you do that. And I ended up being looking for a distributor because I came from a family that was entrepreneurial. I was looking for one. My wife and I'd got married along the way. My wife's from Oklahoma, just so you guys know. I'm not really a native Iowan in any way, even though I've lived there for 47 years. And so anyway, when all of that happened, I just kept having things happen. Bought into this distributor. We grew like crazy. It was a wonderful time to be in the automation business. In 2005, and this is the reason why I know the people at Powermatic Associates, is because we went through an ESOP program and sold the business to the employees, just like Larry Fitzgerald did for the people at Powermatic Associates. And so then I found myself at age 51 without a job. I didn't like working I didn't like working for the ESOP, even though I really believed in the thing. It was just felt strange to me.
Mhm.
And so I said, well, I'm gonna go take it easy. I actually had plans to go to Mexico for 3 months and learn to speak Spanish. I still haven't learned how to speak Spanish, but I have got 3 years of Duolingo under
I was
me.
about to
under my
say, I
belt.
know by your recent Duolingo activity that you didn't quite get it down back then.
Yeah, I didn't get it down. But anyway, I started getting phone calls, because
Yeah.
I was the kind of person I love this business, and my wife was going crazy because we'd go on vacation and it was like, we're going to Boston, but I need to go see these guys and see
Well,
their
because the
business.
relationships don't die. You can change your position, you can take some time off, whatever that is, but
Yeah.
these genuine relationships, they kind of transcend the business, don't they?
I've said this many times for members of AHTD, that if you are a distributor, if you are in this industry, you probably have more in common with the people here in terms of how your daily life is
Yeah.
than you do with the person that owns the hardware store down the street, or your banker, or even your next door neighbor,
Right.
because you got the same thing of, okay, gee whiz, it's Friday afternoon and one of my best customers just had a problem. I'm going to go take care of them.
Yeah.
And so that's how it's worked for me.
Well, that's kind of what Automation Ladies is about. We found too that I didn't have someone to relate to some of the things that I had going on, being a woman sales engineer or, a technical person in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can relate to other people on my team and the males in a lot of ways. I didn't realize that I was missing when I met Allie and Courtney and a lot of these other women.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's things that you get that nobody else gets.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to find that kind of group that there's certain things that you can just relate to.
Well, I think that it's been good for the industry too. We were talking earlier, and I'll say this for those that are watching. In 1992, when I came to the first meeting, there were 0 females in this business.
Yeah.
0, maybe a couple people who were partners, and their husband was an engineer and they were a bookkeeper, and so they
a lot of family business dynamics are like that.
Yeah, and and for instance, a couple of my best friends, Matt Zielinski, who and his father and I went through parts of the Alan Bradley training. I knew his mother, and it was like, okay, here's Mike. He's a salesman who knows technology. Here's his wife, who was one of the top accountants at Motorola. They decided to go into business, and so he was out highfalutin all over Arizona while his wife was there managing the store, doing the operations, and that's an important part of this business. But now AHTD, did you go to the Women in Automation?
The meetup, there is now a Women in Automation kind of subgroup within AHTD, which is both a LinkedIn group, which is really nice, and we do around monthly Zoom calls as well, because we're distributed all over.
Yeah.
And then every meeting we have an in-person meetup at the beginning of the meeting. But unfortunately, I was a little under the weather on Wednesday, and I decided I wasn't sure if I was sick or not, and I didn't want to accidentally get anybody else sick.
Wait a minute.
I'm good. I wouldn't be here.
Okay, good.
I decided to rest to make sure that if I was going to be, feeling my best on Thursday, and so I unfortunately missed it this time around, but that group keeps growing.
Yeah,
it keeps getting bigger.
I think like 35 or 40 people now.
And I do see, the representation. Every meeting that I go to is just a little bit bigger. Yeah. And that's fantastic, because, like you said, your first meeting there was probably one woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then for the next 20 years, it didn't grow that much, did it?
Maybe 3.
Yeah.
So that's an explosion. We had like 300% growth.
Oh yeah.
And the women attended, but it is amazing.
When do you feel like it started to grow enough to be noticeable?
Quite frankly, it's been a slow and steady thing.
Yeah.
But the other part is, I think that there were times when the women in the business said, I'm not going to go because camaraderie is a big part of it.
It feels
And
like
they would come and-
it definitely, if you walk into this room or any other conference room like this, full of industry veterans that are mostly men,
Mhm.
and if you don't have old time friends like I do now, where I can walk into that room and feel 100% comfortable,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel necessarily welcoming. And not because it's not meant to be welcoming. It's one of those things that if you don't feel at home or some way that you belong, and that's just like a basic human instinct.
I totally agree. As a matter of fact, the a plug for AHTD. Incidentally, somewhere along the way, they made the mistake of making me a president of this deal.
Yeah.
Back in 2001, I became president like 2 weeks after 9/11.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was not a good time to be in the meeting business.
Yeah,
we had, I think, 30% of the normal members. So as my presidency was like first that, and there was like a big portion. More people drove. It was in Memphis. More people drove to it than flew to it because they were afraid of flying. The next meeting was in Puerto Rico, and everybody was afraid of flying, quote unquote, overseas.
Yeah.
And the next meeting was in New Orleans, and we had a hurricane.
Okay.
So that was my
So a bit of a rough patch.
That was my experience as president. But the association came to the realization maybe 10 years ago that if you come to a meeting and you interconnect and make friends during that first meeting, then you will come back.
Yeah.
If you come and you're just like, I'm here and I'm walking around and I see all these group, there's 4 people over there and they're laughing and talking. And I look over there and there's another couple of people laughing and talking and I don't know anybody. You kind of go, maybe I'll come back. If you make a friend, and so then you all of a sudden have the people that they know that you're included in the conversation, and you make you make more and more friends. I would guess that you probably know 100 people here now.
Probably.
But watching how you interact with people is no, everybody comes by and says hi to you. And for me, it's like almost the opposite. Everybody knows me, and they go out of their way to say hi. And sometimes I'm hungover, and and I'm going, oh, hi.
That was me on Wednesday. I walked in and I was like, I'm not feeling so great. I don't want to talk to anyone. And we ran into someone that I was planning to meet with on our way in, and Roman asked him for directions. And I was like, this is awkward, but I'm not going to say anything. I just don't want to talk right now. And then the next day, we ended up talking yesterday. But these things, they really are. They're about education. They're about networking. They're about friendship.
They're more networking.
And out of that comes business, right? But people do schedule pre-meetings where they have planned business to discuss. And the types of members here at AHTD are kind of in 3 groups, right? We have the solutions providers, ASPs, the distributors. We have the manufacturers that those distributors sell their products to. And a lot of manufacturers, if they're looking for channel partners, they're looking to grow their distribution here in the US, AHTD is a perfect place for that. You find distributors that are willing to learn, that are willing to be trained, that want to see, the latest and greatest for their customers. They're here. And then you have strategic business partners, which are, you have to be approved, and you have to, as some sort of service provider that really is providing a value specifically to this group of companies in this industry, right? So Quotebeam falls into that category, the strategic business partner, because we've built our solutions for this industry. And that's the fabulous capacity in which I get to come here. So technically, of course, for me as a solutions provider, my ultimate goal is to sell some of my solutions to some of these people here. But we all know by now, and I've gotten to learn more about myself, and especially thank you to Alma Fernandez, who is a member. She works for an AHTD distributor called AWC down in Houston. She's in Austin.
Great company.
Yeah. she recommended I take a personality test called the Enneagram test.
Really, I've not heard that one.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it. It's the first time I've taken one of these tests and really read it and just gone, wow, okay, yes. This
What did it say?
clicked a lot. So there are 9 different personality types, and I think actually we'll do an episode with Alma on this because Allie took one, I took one, everybody at PCE took one, and I think it was really enlightening. My main personality type is called the enthusiast.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. And one of the traits of the enthusiast is that we want to try everything all of the time.
Yes. Yes.
So I was like, you know what? Okay, so some of my answers that I give that people find nonsensical, like what's your favorite food? It's a leftover buffet. What's your favorite color? It's rainbow. That's really me, and that's a real type of person. And if they're successful, they often end up being called Renaissance people because they kind of can do something and then they do something completely different and maybe tie those two things together and come up with something.
That is, aren't when they hit properly.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
and there are weaknesses that this type of personality can also fall prey to very easily, which is chasing too many shiny objects, never being fulfilled by anything, all kinds of things, right? But it's very enlightening given that you look at kind of where you are and go, oh, now I want to skew more towards the highest potential of my personality type. Mm-hmm. Rather than trying to deny it or fit myself. I used to try to shoe myself into this detail-oriented, hardworking, and I am hardworking and I'm detail-oriented, but only when I care about the details.
No, you force yourself. Yeah. Because one way is the way that you naturally, because I'm going to take this test because I think we might have this thing in common.
Yeah.
I am not a detail person. Every day I have to force myself. Mm-hmm. I have to do little tricks to be detailed.
Exactly.
If I don't, and for those of you that I have written over and over again, one of these composition books, they have them at the dollar store.
Yes.
Because it's hard to tear pages out of it, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
You carry it with you everywhere. You don't have to forget, and you write on one side, you write the notes for what happened. On the other side of the page, you write what you're going to do and whether you took care of it or what action items.
Yeah.
And I have to do that.
Yeah, that's a great actionable tip from one of your books. And we'll bring that up here, the new sales guy. And one of the things I do like this is I lose my train of thought very easily because I have lots of different places I want to go. So what I was trying to say though is I do want to sell to people here, but I'm a terrible salesperson in the sense that like I don't enjoy the sale. I enjoy the process and the solutions and helping people with problems. So I have found that this is a perfect kind of place for someone to come and establish relationships, make friends, be consistent, show up, make sure people know what you have, and then when the time and the place and the need is there, guess what? They think of you because you're here, you're reliable, there's someone that you can hopefully trust. We had a great presentation from a speaker this morning about trust, which I posted about on LinkedIn.
That was real good. I'm leery of you heard me talk about what I call infotainment.
Yes, some of these keynote speakers.
This guy, he was so slick. Remember the part where he said never, 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 and then paused and said, and never do this.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, that got everybody's attention. That's wonderful. But I'm kind of the person, okay, let's cut to the chase. Just give me the Clef Notes. Yeah. I never see a movie that I'm not going, well, that was a really good movie, but gosh, we could have taken 15 minutes out of it.
Oh, of course. Yes. Yeah. Distill the actionable insights.
Yes.
Conciseness is not one of my strengths, though. So that just is what it is now.
But that's for me. That's not for everybody else.
Yeah.
I'll bloviate on stuff. I almost said a nasty word. We're keeping this PG-13. I will bloviate on stuff all the time, but I want everybody else to get right to the point.
So the format of I just want to explain again, if somebody is ever thinking like, is AHTD for me? Would I like to come to these conferences? And I know Allie came with me last time to San Antonio, and she found it to be incredibly valuable. but it's packed with speakers. So there's a committee within AHTD that picks the program. There you go.
Committee,
You are on
yes.
the program committee. So how do you guys pick the speakers or put together the program?
This is a thing that the budget for speakers is incredible. I mean, we can pick. We obviously Elon Musk we couldn't afford, but we have a hard time finding the right people because because of a whole bunch of things. There's speaker bureaus that do nothing but pitch you speakers, and you really can't trust them because they'll do anything for a sale.
What are their incentives? I always look at what are the real incentives in this situation.
The other part is that the group likes entertaining infotainment kind of people, but they also crave to have something that can apply to their business. And we there is a shortage of speakers there. One that we had, Ian Heller.
Yes.
Remember that one? I mean, it's one of the greatest things. I'm not just saying I like him because he mentioned my book in the middle of the presentation, but I do like Ian.
I didn't like him because he didn't mention us. No, I'm just kidding.
That is, it was probably a mistake on his part. He should have, but people that can give you direct information into distribution, into knowledge-based distribution, which is what we are pretty limited. Because the really big multi-billion-dollar companies are more logistics providing distributors, and so if you're a consultant, which one are you going to go to? The person that can pay you billions of dollars, or the one that is going to pay a fair but smaller amount of money? But this is I got distracted. It was a shiny object that you pointed me at. We're constantly asking members, have you seen somebody speak? We like to see people who have videos. They don't have to be professional videos, but we want to see them in action. All the people that you saw today all have, like a selection of 15 minutes kind of videos, and they were all good. I would say the area that I noticed in listening to the speakers, and I missed one, but the topic of artificial intelligence is on everybody's mind.
So I posted about that one as well. It was a younger guy, a sales guy that started in sales. His dad, I guess, had a company doing Sandler sales training, and he started when he was 16. He said he was the youngest certified Sandler sales person.
I'll be done. Cool.
And he said, I think it might have been a post. He might have not mentioned it in his presentation, but he calls himself the AI sales guy, and I posted about him as well, and I followed him, and I recommend that people do as well because his content was really great, very actionable. Although in some cases also overwhelming, which the AI topic often is. He said, nobody grows up to want to be a salesperson. And I've heard this quite a bit, and I've caught myself saying it as well because I didn't, right? My profession, at least earlier on, was sales engineer. And I would have never thought what are you going to be when you grow up? Oh, a salesperson. Absolutely not. In fact, it was something that So sales engineering I find to be very different. It's like you said, knowledge-based. You're adding value. You are necessary because the customer does not have the knowledge in many cases to do what they need alone. They need that support, and they either pay for it in the form of some sort of consulting or a systems integrator doing it for them. Or in many cases, a combination of that plus this technical, salesperson. But I have been wrong now twice. I have met two people that told me they grew up to want to be a salesperson.
Who are that? Who are those?
The speaker from yesterday, the AI sales guy. And forgive me, I don't remember his actual name, but I guess that's a good tagline because then now I know him by his moniker. And the other one was a young sales engineer that worked with me at Keyence. Her name is Annie. And she went to college for sales at and forgive me, I don't remember whether it was Ohio University or the University of Ohio, but one of them, to my surprise, had a sales major or has a sales major in their business school, which when I went to school at UT Austin, there is no sales major. It's either marketing, finance,
or party in town at 6th Street.
International business was my buffet, which was a little bit of everything, but how to do it internationally.
Yeah. Well,
so yeah, I think, our flavor of sales is very different than what most people think about when they think about a salesperson.
It's not sales.
No.
It's not, as a person who considers themselves a salesperson,
yeah,
who, I was selling tires for semi trucks when I was 14.
Okay.
And was pretty good at it, actually, but I never really considered it because I've said this in 3 books that I've written, all for salespeople, is we're not salespeople, like as in the person that sold you your last water bed, assuming you've ever had a water bed. Those are probably out of style by now.
My parents had one. I remember it very well.
Oh, they're so fun to play in.
A Kirby vacuum.
I sold encyclopedias when I was in school.
Yeah.
Only because it was easy and fun, and we got to go on trips. And I was a small town kid. I wanted to see the world.
Yeah.
Bloomington, Normal, Illinois, Decatur, Illinois, Peoria, Illinois. I saw all of those, which were strange and faraway places for me. But the general attitude is that salespeople are people who trick others into doing something that they wouldn't do.
Yeah.
And if you try that in our industry, you will
you'll be gone.
Flip flop, flunder, and go away. If on the other hand, you go in and find out what the customer's having problems with.
Yep.
And there's a little bit of a skill associated with that.
Absolutely.
And ask the customer to talk about what they're doing. And then you become almost like a human search engine. They mention a bunch of things, and do I have a product there that can work? And I would say that even if you don't make a sale, if you know the lay of the land and you go, the customer needs something that you don't sell, and you go, hey, I don't have that, but Nikki has that. Let me give you her phone number. You have just made somebody that will turn into an ally. From Nikki being an ally, you'll turn into a customer thinking of you as not somebody who force feeds things.
Yep.
And the other part is that, generally speaking, when people think of sales, they're thinking of transactional events.
Yeah.
As I talk to you, you say yes or no in the next 10 minutes. And if you say no, I never see you again. If you say yes, I get a check and I never see you again. In our world, which is almost like it's a small little pond of interaction.
Yeah.
Ours is more like a river. You go and do something, and if you are successful, then it will just flow and flow and flow, and you'll have, I have not been specifically assigned an account in the automation world for over 25 years. Longer than that, and like 30 years.
Yeah.
I was running a company that was doing it and supervising and helping people, but I didn't have an account for 30 years. And I still have people call me and say, hey, I've got this problem. What should I do? Which is fabulous. Because
I don't know how many times I've been called by former customers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've no longer worked that job because they want to ask my opinion.
Yeah.
Knowing I can't actually help them right now with anything other than just point them in the right direction.
Yes.
The other thing I've been offered is jobs by people that I never sold anything to, but I tried. And the first time that happened, it caught me off guard. And I said, well, clearly I didn't do a very good job. I never sold you anything. Why would you want to hire me to sell something?
Because they were able to understand that you were honest, sincere, and probably because you didn't just call on them once
Yeah.
and say, "Oh, you're not going to buy anything? Okay, goodbye." I had one customer, and yeah, I'll tell you who it was, because they're now out of business, sadly. But Maytag was the
Oh,
number
yeah.
one appliance manufacturer in the world, and they were in Iowa. And when I came to Iowa, they bought zero stuff from Allen Bradley. And I called there, and purchasing was in control at that one. I could not call into the plant and talk to an engineer, a maintenance person, or anything until such time that the purchasing department forwarded me there.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, it was under tremendous lock and key.
Yeah.
And I went in and talked to this gentleman named Don Mackerman, who was a really nice but super straight-laced Iowa farmer that came into town to work at the factory. And he said, "Well, Frank, I have to know that you're serious about this." And I go, "Well, how do I show that I'm serious?" "Well, you have to call on me every 2 weeks, and your time, Frank, is 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon." Single guy, new to Iowa, lived 3 hours away, and my time was 3 o'clock. I go, "Okay, Don, I'll come here." And so I went there every other Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
If I was going to be on vacation, I would have to write Don a letter. I mean, there's no emails, no nothing. I would write him a letter and say, "I'm sorry I can't be there this week, but I could do another day at your convenience." And thankfully he didn't make me, but
Yeah.
and so this went on for like 9 months, and I was ready to, if it would have been anybody except Maytag, I probably would have, because their potential was giant.
Yeah.
And one day he called and said, "There's a young man who just transferred here from another company. He went to the University of Illinois where you went, and he wants to talk to somebody from Allen Bradley. Would you mind talking to him?" I go, when I'll crawl across broken glass to get there. And so I went there, and by the time it was over, we had all their, I mean, it was a fabulous success story, and it wasn't just my work.
No, but that consistency and that perseverance, really, and that your commitment to the relationship is what got him to trust you. Right.
I think he was trying to set me up to fail. It was a test.
Yeah.
It was a test.
I'm now going to be tempted by this shiny object to share a story, and then we'll move into
please do.
Up. I have a work experience that's not on my LinkedIn because it was the short stint. So when I left CST, Computer Simulation Technology, they've now been acquired by Dassault. I was selling electromagnetic simulation software there, and I loved the job. Well, my entire office was run by engineers, and then I got a middle manager that was only a salesperson, and it made me hate my job because he did not care about the status of the applications. He cared about the status of the PO only.
Okay. Did you get the order? No.
Yeah. And so I, in the following year after he joined, when I was supposed to give him my strategy, we were having like a planning meeting for the year, how I was going to meet my goal and what my strategy was to meet my goal in my territory. And he had very clearly restricted my activity to only things that benefit my sales goal in my territory. So I was supposed to stop doing training workshops for prospective customers for everybody's territory that was, driving distance from the office. I used to help with trainings. I'm a person that likes to do a lot of things that help move the entire ship forward versus thinking just my goal, right? So then again, I'm not a good salesperson. I don't stay in my lane. He made just the way he wanted me to do my job was not what I wanted for the job. And so I called my husband. He was out of town the night before this meeting. And I just said, I'm sorry, but I have to quit my job tomorrow. And he's like, "Why?" And I was like, "I can't go into this meeting because I don't believe in any kind of plan that would please Lewis in how I would do this job. I don't enjoy it anymore, and I can't BS my way through this tomorrow. I don't want to lie. I'm a terrible liar. I'm an honest person. And so I had to just quit the next day because I had to be honest that it's not in me anymore. And I didn't have a plan exactly. I just knew this isn't what I want to do anymore.
You have to do that sometime.
And I wanted to do something that was meaningful to me. And I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was bombarded with startup, billboards all of the time. And one of the things that had frustrated me is that we had a very old CRM system, and I could not intelligently send email invitations to certain trainings to customers where it was relevant. I had to blast it to everyone. And I thought, the technology is here now. I see it on my commute every day that, I can segment my customer base and send relevant messaging to relevant people. And I want to be able to do that. And I had also never worked for an American company. I had only worked for Japanese and German companies.
Really?
So I thought, I live in the Bay Area. I have to at least try working for startups. So I went on AngelList, which is one of the websites that's great for, startup jobs and things like that. And I just put, hey, this is my history. I'm a technical salesperson. I just want to work with any startup that will kind of have me to let me see what's up. And I found this hardware startup in Oakland. They were called RoboCop at the time, with 2 Ps in order to not violate copyright infringement, although they've changed it now. And they make safety devices. So their flagship device was an alarm, a wearable alarm that you carry, and it was meant for college students. So that you can pull this alarm, and it's very loud, to deter attacks or crime or anything like that. And it's a great alternative to pepper spray because you don't have to be close enough to get in somebody's eyes. And it was meant for, college students or working professionals that, don't feel safe maybe walking to their car at night after work.
Or the average Oakland resident.
Yes. So I was living in Oakland, and our target, his target, the CEO of this company, one of the things that I came in to try to help with was to get this device into the campus police at UC Berkeley. And he said, hey, I have this, the head of campus police, we know who he is. We've been trying to get in there. Can you get in there and, present this to him and run a test program? Because ideally he wanted to sell it to the campuses to provide to students rather than individually to students. And so I was like, I have no clue how to talk to campus police. I've been in technology sales my whole life. I work with engineers, but heck it, I'll give it a try. And I found this head of campus police. I was able to make an appointment with him at 7:30 a.m.
Perfect.
And I was like, okay, great. And I show up with a cup of coffee, and he goes, oh, I don't drink coffee. Don't bring me dirt water. And I was like, okay, not off to a great start here. And I was like, do you drink cheese? And he's like, no, I don't need any coffee or tea. But he's like, but you can come see me every Friday at 7:30 if you want.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, something to that effect. So I ended up with this standing appointment at 7:30 a.m. on Fridays, where I showed up, and we had, he would always give me some little thing to try to go talk to so-and-so or whatever. And eventually we got that pilot program into UC Berkeley.
That is amazing.
I also got them sold in the campus bookstore directly to students. But that was the first time that I have had that kind of request.
That, at least it was 7:30 on Friday morning.
Yeah.
Well, although when you're young, 7:30 and
I know that was very early.
Might as well make it like 5 in the morning.
I mean, I used to drive from the Bay Area up to, I handled Reno and Fresno for my territories as an outside salesperson. And I would occasionally meet with the early maintenance shift at 7 a.m. in Sacramento or something. So, you get on the road at 4 or 5. So, you do what you got to do.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed that people that get up early, I kind of think of it as a sleeping disorder.
Yeah.
But that people that get up early believe that anybody that gets up a half hour later than them is slothly and worthless and lazy. And if you just find that person that's like, he's an early morning guy, those people that you see, it's 5. I get up at 4 every morning because it's just the most beautiful time of the day. And if you go in and go, yeah, me too.
Yeah, I cannot relate. I'm not a morning person by default. But we are up on, you thought this was going to be 15 minutes, Frank, and here we are at an hour.
Are we really?
We are.
Oh shoot!
So I want to move on to kind of our closing, and I want to bring up as well. Thank you, Allie, for joining remotely and posting. She asks, so this guy has a book, right? Not
yes,
just
I
one.
do.
Yeah.
Multiple books.
So one is called The New Sales Guy Project.
Yes.
And that is the one that I have read half of. And I would highly recommend to any new salesperson in this industry, whether you're with a distributor or a manufacturer, and don't be deterred if you're not a guy. It's a term that, I'm the sales guy.
It's a Midwestern generic term.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we can have a whole episode debating whether that's appropriate or not, if anybody wants to.
I'd love to argue with him. Some of my best customers called saying they were going to sue me. So call me up.
Who's the controls guy? We hear that a lot. And Allie's like, I'm the controls guy. Great read. It's your books are kind of like talking to you. You put a little bit of commentary in there about what you were thinking when you wrote it. I really appreciate your writing style, I will say.
I stole it from a Seattle native.
Okay.
Yes.
And then another one here. So there's some resources for distributors. The Distributors Fee-Based Services Manifesto. So Allie was kind enough to include links here to all the books. And then she also said, hey, you have an invitation to come back, Frank, already. I would like to do an episode with Frank just about 1977 Cleveland and those 3 Allen Bradley applications engineers he was sent to work for. And that OG story she needs to hear in more detail. Absolutely.
OG, I had to look that up incidentally. I thought that was what people said when they were having an overdose, OD, and then OG, I'm having an OD.
Well, the economist, that was the last speaker today, which was not do you know how to say their last name?
Value.
Okay, I've been saying it wrong, just like okay.
It's unpronounceable unless you heard them say it.
I was expecting one of them because those are the staple economists.
They'll be back next meeting.
We had another lady, but she started with a story about her kids, I guess, talking about the Riz and the Res, and I was like, yeah, I don't even know this lingo.
And the P-Dome.
Yes. The P-Doom. Right?
P-Doom, yes.
The impending apocalypse or change.
What is it? I wrote down what it said so I could be hip and cool like Nikki. Here we go. We've got it written down. P-Doom stands for probability of doomsday.
Okay, yes. Yeah, a very technical term. So that's apparently what the young folks are thinking about today. I'm not young enough anymore. I was the youngest person in the office at my first 2 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got this like overconfidence that I was young and impressive for being so young. And now I'm old and I work with a lot of impressive younger people than me.
That's one of the reasons why I wrote the New Sales Guy book, because I had 4 years of times where my Friday afternoons and Saturday mornings were spent with people who had been in the business for less than a year.
Yeah.
Most of them were under 26 or 27. It was so energizing and cool, and I learned lots of good things. Like when she said Riz, I knew what that meant.
Okay. So you got a leg up on me on that one. Well, Frank, do you want to tell us if you want to give a pitch for your business or anything in particular, and then if people are more interested in getting to know you or your work, where can they follow you? And is there anything that they can look forward to seeing from you in the near future? Here's
the things that first of all, how can you get a hold of me? My last name is Hurtte. It's a very, very.
I hope I got it right there. Yeah.
Hurtte. It's a very, very uncommon name. I happen to be the only Frank Hurt in the whole wide world.
Oh, okay.
Or at least as of right now.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing you can do as a Google search. The second thing is you can go to the Distributor Channel blog. I started off blogging 15 years ago, when the first time I heard blogging, I thought, oh yeah, I just got these ideas, and before you had to find an author to publish or an editor to publish it, some of my thoughts were too off the wall. And so I started putting things on the distributor channel. I think we've got over 500 articles on there.
Yeah,
maybe
so
even
deep
more.
knowledge base there.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Frank Hurt.
Yep.
I'm on Amazon. I've got one book that I wrote for the National Association of Wholesalers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you really want to be impressed, you just have to look up my book on distributor specialists and see how much it's selling for on Amazon used. Last time I looked, it's $1,200, and I only wish that I would have kept the case of them that they gave me when I published it.
You'd be
I
rich.
would have been rich. I work with knowledge-based distributors and manufacturers that go to market through those. And I love to talk to people. I love to talk shop. If you call me, I'll talk about anything with you, but you'll have to put up with, I'll ask you dumb questions about your business. People think that that's my natural born skill. I ask dumb questions and people go, wow, he's smart. That's such an insightful question. No, it was a really dumb question, but I didn't know the answer. So I asked. And
asking
I love that.
questions is underrated these days. I feel like people are afraid to field them, and so they don't ask questions.
Which I say that if you want to seem like you're smarter than you really are, if you ask an assumptive question, and they go, well, Nikki, I know that you started in automation working for Keon's, and because of that direct experience, what would you say is the best thing about distributors? And I don't know anything about what you're saying, but I said a little bit about you, and you go, oh God, is he smart? He's just
Well, there's a tip for you guys.
I'm giving away all my tricks, so.
Well, we look forward to hopefully sharing more knowledge from Frank in the future on the Automation Ladies channel.
Incidentally, my partner is a lady named Desiree Grace.
Well, we'd love to
she
talk
is
to her someday.
A sales guy too.
Awesome. Yes. So with that, from the Hyatt Regency in Bellevue, Washington, we bid you goodbye. It is Friday. We will be doing lives now fairly regularly now that we have kind of season 5 up and running. I've gotten a little bit of rest. I'm not as completely burnt out as I was a little bit after like IMTS, which was a huge thing. I'll be posting more content from IMTS now that I'm alive again. It was over a month ago, but it feels like yesterday. I've never been to a trade show that was a straight 6 days. And that means I was there for straight 8 days. I will say, though, I want to encourage everyone, especially women, to start getting involved in these industry associations and not just involved, but come to the events. But I also know that it's a huge challenge because if at home you have a lot of caretaking responsibilities, children, household, elders, whatever it is, it can be a huge guilt trip to travel for work. Especially if it's anywhere like nice and like AHTD, they treat you so well. They give you a party, they give you excursions. You're almost like, man, how can I be out here doing this fun thing and, where I should be at home taking care of the kids? I feel that every time I come to one of these events, but at the same time, it's worth it. And my kids see that I love what I do, and they don't think of work as something to dread. They're excited to, work and do different things. They see me with my work friends. When I go travel, they ask, how are your work friends? Did you see, so-and-so? And so I think as much as it is a challenge, if you can treat yourself to even one of these meetings a year or every other year, there's plenty to choose from because they do them twice a year in 2 different locations. So there's always somewhere new to explore. Next year, the spring meeting is in April in Atlanta.
Yes, ma'am.
And then it looks like there's also going to be
Tampa
an SPS fair. In Atlanta next year. So I may be going to Atlanta twice next year. We'll see. But with that, upcoming Automation Ladies stuff, please subscribe to our newsletter. And if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, give that a like. I don't know what the influencers say these days, what you're supposed to say. And Courtney Fernandez and I will be at Automation Fair in November, Rockwell Automation Fair. So that will be the next event that I'll be going to and probably my last of the year. But I think we have a live scheduled probably next week. At this point, Emily owns the half of my brain that schedules Automation Ladies. So I hope to see you guys again next week. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.